Welcome, welcome, everybody. This is Grady of This Mormon Life, and you are listening to the Third Hour of Power. This week, I am joined with Kurt Frankum of Leading LDS. Kurt, thanks for joining us again.
No problem, Grady. It's always fun to come back here and talk about the third hour of power, and gets me prepped for priesthood meeting on Sunday. That's for sure. I guess that's the point. So
Yeah, you're like our perfect audience and our perfect guest.
that's right. I appreciate the world taking the time to allow me to review the lesson. So
Yeah, and you might recognize Frank's voice as well, if not from Leading LDS or as a past guest of ours. He's also a frequent guest on Sunday School Bonanza with Jeff of This Mormon Life as they talk about the Sunday School lesson.
that's right. And you're much more. You treat me a little softer than Jeff does over there. So I appreciate that.
He does ask the hard-hitting
He
questions.
does. He catches me in the corner, and I don't know how to get out.
Well, this week we're talking about in the Joseph Fielding Smith Manual, Lesson 23, which is individual responsibility. And Kurt, the first section there, you kind of to in that lesson.
Yeah, so he talks about a story. Well, I don't know if he relates it, but a story about D. Arthur Haycock, who later became secretary to many presidents of the church. And I love these stories they tell in the first section regarding, just days in the life of the president. And that basically, not to take up our whole time with the story, but he kind of jokes with President Smith that I hope he can sneak in the doors of heaven through his example and through the man he is. And so that kind of leads him into a discussion of personal or individual responsibility. And this is a great section or a great chapter because it speaks to the American in me, and going out and paving your own road and being responsible for your actions in life. And so in the first section, the Lord expects us to be industrious in seeking temporal and spiritual blessings. They reference the scripture in D&C 42, verse 42, that says, "Thou shalt not be idle, for he that is idle shall not eat the bread, nor wear the garments of the laborer." And just a good, solid concept that anybody can take home and apply in their week about being industrious and being responsible for the success and the life that you make for yourself.
Yeah, and that section there, it talks about the temporal needs and making sure that you're taking care of your family and those obligations. Now, Kurt, you're a bishop. Is that always a hard thing when you have people that find themselves in dire straits, and sometimes it's like as a result of their own inaction or poor action?
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, and I was actually discussing this with another bishop today. And I live kind of in a unique area where a lot of transition, people coming and going, a lot of apartments, and so I do see those that really need to make some hard decisions in life, and that it's not that they don't want to take initiative in their life, but they've never seen anybody else do it. They were kind of raised in poverty, and they don't know what individual responsibility looks like. And so it becomes really tough at times because you can't really just default to, oh, they're lazy, they won't do anything for themselves, but they simply don't know how. And so that's such a powerful part of the gospel, is that it truly teaches us how to be self-reliant. And the other day I heard someone mention that one characteristic of God is that he's self-reliant. He can't be all-powerful and dependent on someone or something, and so it's a strong trait that we can all build in the gospel for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he could do all the things that he needs to do. The reason he asks us to do it is because he wants us to grow. He could do it himself if he wanted to.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
I like the principle that the church has, with provident living, and it's interesting. I took a class at BYU Idaho, and it was about provident living and things like that. But one of the things that they focus on in that class is not only like temporal needs, but also being responsible for your spiritual needs, which I
Yeah.
think is so important. Is your own self-reliance and making sure that you are growing. In the second section, there's a quote. It says that we are dealing with our faith and conscience. We are dealing when dealing with our faith and conscience, we are not dealing with me, not the presidency of the church, but with the Lord. I am not dealing with men respecting my tithing. My dealings with those are my dealings with the Lord. That is with reference to my own conduct in the church and with reference to my observance of the other laws of the church. If we fail to observe the laws of the church, I am responsible to the Lord and will have to answer to Him by and by for the neglect of my duty. And I think it's so important. A lot of times when we're having struggles in our faith, or maybe we drift apart a little bit, it's very easy and very tempting to find fault. That someone, I don't go to church because I'm not getting anything out of it. The Sunday school lessons aren't interesting to me. There's not a really good teacher. It's interesting in Lisa's study. She's always boring and she cries a lot.
Yeah.
Um, but the idea that we have an individual responsibility to get something out of church on Sunday. We have a responsibility to grow our own faith. And there's a neat book called Ownership Spirit, and it's a whole employee training program, but it's by Dennis Deaton, who's a member of the church.
I haven't
And
heard of that. Check that out.
yeah, it's great. And the whole idea is that there's an ownership spirit, an ownership mentality, and a victim mentality. And the idea is that when something wrong happens, the victim mentality throws up their hands and goes, "This is impossible. The world's against me. I can't win." Whereas an ownership spirit says, "Oh, this is an obstacle I need to overcome. How am I going to overcome this? Because I need to get past this to get to where I want to be." And I think it's so important for us to kind of adopt that same thing when it comes to our own self-reliance spiritually and having a strong foundation and a strong testimony of the gospel.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, and this will allow me to get on my soapbox a little bit, but I tend to do that. So we have various missionaries, just like any ward, that come through, the full-time missionaries, and they're they're famous for saying the words, just like every home teacher says at the end of a visit, and that is, they say to me, "Bishop, is there anything we can do for you?" And I always have to be careful because I don't want to come across as a jerk, but I usually stop them and say, "Elder, the one thing I want you to do is never say that phrase again, because instead of saying, 'Bishop, is there anything I can do for you?' or tell your home teaching family, 'Hey, is there anything we can do for you?' Just stop, look around, and find something you can do." And and this is a great concept, especially in the second part of this lesson, where each individual can look at their approach to church, and sure, they go and they're worthy, they take the sacrament, and they participate where they're asked to do, but what more can you do? And I think that's a part of spiritual self-reliance, is really stepping back and saying, you know what, I'm maybe going to visit two extra people outside my home teaching route, or I'm going to come a little early and see if I can straighten the hymn books or whatever. And that kind of seems silly, but from a bishop's standpoint, usually he's the one that's picking up all the slack. And so by more members stepping back and saying, man, what more can I do to really make a difference? And some people just simply default to that phrase of, well, is there anything else we can do for you? And, oh, they said no, so I guess not. So this
All
is a
done with
great,
that.
yeah, this is a great concept and opportunity for people to step back and say, am I spiritually self-reliant? Can I do more to sanctify myself? And in the third section, I don't mean to jump ahead, I guess we're running out of time, but let's see. It says President Smith says, "It is a most serious error to believe that Jesus did everything for men if they would but confess him with their lips, and there is nothing else for them to do. Men have work to do if they would obtain salvation." Now, of course, in regards to being exalted, his grace is sufficient. It is all covering, and it'll get us there. But to be sanctified, to become more like God, there's nothing that Christ can do to make us learn these lessons that we learn by coming to this earth. If there was no point of us coming here and simply Christ saving us, they would have just sent Christ and he would have just saved us, and it would have been great. But there's a purpose for us being here, and is in getting out of our comfort zone and serving and doing more for those around us. And that kind of leads us into the concluding section 4, where not only should we have responsibility over our own salvation, but for others as well.
Yeah, I love the story of the tree of life where, Lehi, he travels on his own. He gets to the tree, he partakes of the fruit, he feels God's love, and then once he's there, he wants to look around for his family. He wants them to be blessed as well. And I think it's important for us that we need to make sure that we have that same foundation. One thing that they kind of apply sometimes with Provident Living too is when you're on an airplane and they talk
Yeah,
about the safety video, and if we have a decrease in cabin pressure, oxygen mask will drop down. It's important that you put your own mask on yourself first and then put the mask on someone else, because what happens is if you spend all of your time taking care of someone else's needs and not enough on your own, you find that you're not able to take care of yourself and now you're in need. um, or the fact that because you have not taken care of your own finances, now bless and give to others, or you haven't taken care of your own spirituality. You haven't studied the scriptures and you don't know the doctrine. Someone else has a crisis of faith. You don't have the information to share with them. Instead, you might hear something that's troubling, and now your faith is shaken.
yeah,
And so it's
great
important that
point.
we need to work on our foundation.
Perfect. I think that's a perfect analogy of how do we expect to help save others if we can't figure out how to save ourselves. We have to learn those basic steps in doing so, so that we'll be greater. Our light will be brighter and have greater influence on those around us.
Yeah. Well, Kurt, I think that's about it that wraps up this lesson. But where can people find you on the internet this week?
Yeah, the best place to go is just leadinglds.com. I've got a podcast there where we uh, interview various leaders in the church, see how they run meetings, see how they approach home teaching, visiting teaching. Just interviewed a primary president, and we broke down the intricacies of the music leader to the nursery leader, and it was really fun to talk about the dynamics of leadership in primary. But you'll see all sorts of those types of interviews and articles at leadinglds.com.
Yeah, it's a great place to go. I've used the teachings there in my own callings, and so I appreciate the service that Kurt gives.
That's great to hear. Thanks.
Excuse me. And for me, once again, my name's Grady of This Mormon Life, and you can find more of what I do on www.this-mormon-life. Also, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, and our benefactors, This Week in Mormons, they're also on those places. Thisweekinmormons.com. They're the ones that distribute our podcast for us, and they also have some great resources like Sunday School Bonanza, which we mentioned earlier, and This Week in Mormons. Um, Check us out, follow us, tweet us, pin us. Just be involved. We're glad to have you guys, and a review on iTunes, a comment, a thumbs up. It makes what we do a little bit easier and gives us the strength to keep going. So until next time, on behalf of Kurt, my name is Grady, and we wish you all a fond adieu.